Greetings, good people, beautiful people. Welcome to Kalami Royalty, the podcast. I am your host, Mihle Chiba. Welcome to episode 5 of season 1. Yes, it's episode 5. It's our 5th week. Okay. Still have a long way to go. If this is the first time listening to the podcast, welcome to Kalami Royalty, the podcast. This is a mental health awareness podcast that aims at breaking the stigma and discrimination on mental health in South Africa, especially in small Black communities like Ekasi or the townships. So on the previous episodes, I spoke about a lot. I spoke about a lot of things. But to those listening for the first time, I spoke about what mental health is. I tried explaining it. I spoke about the common mental illnesses that anyone can actually suffer from or be diagnosed with. I spoke about factors that affect our mental health. I spoke about children and teenagers' mental health and how to support children and teenagers who might be suffering from a mental illness. Now, on this episode 5, I will be talking about elderly mental health. So, I feel like culture zethu have changed over the years. Abantu abamnyama had so many traditional beliefs that were obeyed and practiced by many people. This meant that the stigma was not only on mental health, but on the LGBT communities as well. Women and child abuse. Those topics were taboo back in the days. It was unspoken about, and which led to women and children being mentally disturbed at some point and possibly suffering from mental disorders. Kodwa, back in the days, like I said, the culture and tradition was different. There were so many traditional beliefs that had to be obeyed and practiced. I think it was in episode 3 where I spoke about how the stigma on LGBT communities and women and child abuse has actually, we've come a long way, to be honest. I think there's still a stigma, yes, but it's better than before. It's better than back in the days, because back in the days, a gay person or a lesbian person couldn't express or be proud of who they really are in the community, and the society actually was ashamed of that back in the days. Even today, there's still that. We are still ashamed. Okay, I'm not ashamed. Did I just say we are? There's still that shame on the LGBT communities that it's more like the community is okay with having lesbian, gays, bisexual, and transgender people, but they don't want to talk about it, especially in Black communities. I don't think we have, in my community, I don't think we have a place a safe space where we can talk about issues like our mental health, our LGBT people, and women and child abuse. We don't have those centers, and I think we are aware that they exist, but we don't want to talk about it. It's not spoken about. And back in the days, it was even worse. It was not spoken about at all. It was taboo, like I said. And so imagine that it was not spoken about back in the days, and now our parents are traumatized in a way, and our great grandmothers and great grandfathers have been through a lot, to a point where their mental health is affected, and they did not get the help that they need, and now they're getting old, because age also is a factor in actually increasing chances of being mentally ill. So mental health problems are common in seniors or old people, and many include isolation, depression, and anxiety disorder. Dementia being the most common mental illness in older people. Um, so imagine um, our grandmothers who were married at a young age. I think that also was a trauma, because they were forced to be married to older men. Um, so they are married and they have to raise a lot of kids. Um, and then they grow older with that trauma, and they are possibly suffering from PTSD, which is the post traumatic stress, and it's not dealt with. And now they have to deal with other mental illnesses, which include isolation, depression, anxiety, and dementia, which is the most common mental illness in older people. So you see how older people are also at a higher risk at being mentally ill. And if the illness is not detected or um, treated from a very early age, it becomes worse for them when they get old. So I mentioned dementia. So dementia is a syndrome, usually of a chronic or progressive nature, in which there is deterioration in memory, thinking, behavior, and the ability to perform everyday activities. It mainly affects older people. Well, although it is not a normal part of aging, okay, I spoke about depression. Depression can cause great suffering and leads to impaired functioning in daily life. Older people with depression symptoms have poorer functioning compared to those with chronic medical conditions such as lung disease or diabetes. So I was raised by my late grandmother Dora Nondumiso Mchangaga, and well, I'm not saying she had any mental illness problems, but I'm also not saying she was mentally ill. I um I do know that she was very forgetful at times. So ndibone ngoma kulwam that she was very forgetful. And my grandmother would send me to go buy milk, and she'd give me the exact amount and still ask where her change is. And I'd tell her there is no change. And as soon as I tell her that I'm a Makulu, there's no change, you gave me the exact amount. She will shout at me for over an hour. And when she realizes that she gave me the exact amount, she'd ask, why didn't I say anything? But you know how our grandmothers are, they will talk, and when you try to explain, they'd say supendula, don't talk back. And so I didn't tell you because I didn't want to be slapped, Makulu. I didn't say that out loud though. But yeah, older people are very forgetful at times, and that has to do with their age and their mental health being affected, which in some cases older people are diagnosed with dementia. Another mental illness older people could be suffering from is PTSD, like I said, especially if our grandparents were traumatized by, as in South Africa. I'm from South Africa, so I'll talk about what I know about South Africa. So like our grandmothers experienced apartheid, and so that was a trauma. Our grandmothers were married at a young age. That's another trauma. They had to raise kids as children themselves, and that's another trauma. And then as they get older, they are affected by their mental health is affected because of their age. So that's another factor that actually increases their chances of being mentally ill or mentally disturbed. So PTSD could be another mental illness that they could be suffering, especially Black people in South Africa. Because on the previous episode, I mentioned that apartheid had a negative impact on Black people's mental health. Apartheid traumatized our great parents and grandparents. Some got the help to deal with the trauma, and majority did not, and mostly suffering in silence. So now imagine being raised by traumatized parents who were traumatized. Lento now becomes generational. This is why on this podcast I am breaking the stigma so that we can finally break this generational chain of suffering from mental health. I think also there are stressors that can affect our grandparents. Stressors can result in isolation, loneliness, and psychological distress in older people, for which they may require long-term care. Mental health has an impact on physical health and vice versa. For example, older adults with physical health conditions such as heart disease have higher rates of depression than those who are healthy. Additionally, untreated depression is in an older person with heart disease can negatively affect its outcome. Older adults are also vulnerable to elder abuse, including physical, verbal abuse, financial, and sexual abuse. You find that our grandparents are raising great grandchildren, and they get older, and now they take advantage of the fact that our grandparents can't take care of themselves or even take care of them. So they take advantage of that and they actually abuse them, which is wrong. And it's sickening. It's sickening. And that should not be happening to our older people. They need to be taken care of because they took care of us. And I think my grandmother taught me that. And I remember this one time we had a conversation about me taking care of her, and then she was like, "I'm Mansindi Koka. When I get old, you better take care of me." And she gave me her reasons why. She was like, "I'll be old. I won't be able to do things I can do now, and all of that." And I understood that. And as soon as she was getting older, and she couldn't do things for herself, I stepped up. And like I promised to take care of her, I did exactly that. My grandmother would have pains in her body. I would have to massage her, cut her nails. I will do that. Do her hair. I would gladly do that. And so I took care of her because I think the older they get, they now become children. They can't do things for themselves. They need to be taken care of. And this is a long-term care, you know. So older adults are vulnerable to abandonment, neglect, and serious losses of dignity and respect. So current evidence suggests that 1 in 6 older people experience elder abuse. Elder abuse can lead not only to physical injuries but also serious, something long-lasting psychological